Hey again, it's Rob Ryder on Wednesday, April 21st, 2021. And today it's going to be about Christian Church's wartime pledge to God, country, and flag. So, what happened, right, is way back in the day, 1917, actually 1918, when they actually signed the agreement, right, when the United States declared war on the German imperial government, right, there's actually a declaration of war for World War One. One of the things they did soon after is they got the churches, all the denominations, to create a public entity, right? Some kind of civil organization that, for lack of a better term, right, the War Department then gave that entity a commission, right? It didn't come from Congress, right? It came during a time of war, and it came from the military because the military is in charge. They declared martial law, so the United States was under martial law. The martial law government gave the churches a commission. So, hey, Christian churches, the gold fringe flag is a symbol of your authority. It's not a decoration. There's a reason you have a gold fringe flag. The Army is very, very selective on where that flag can be displayed. And, that's all in a particular Army regulation, AR 840-10. You go to Chapter 2, Section 3, it'll tell you about the gold fringe flag and where it can be displayed. Right? So one of the places, though, is in a chapel. So, the military considers every church with a gold fringe flag to be a military chapel. So that's what this is about, right? That this exists, and because it was done through the military, it still exists. It may not have been used, but that's the way military does stuff. They got all sorts of units, mothballed, retired, whatever you want to call it, that they can bring out anytime they want to. And I'm saying the only reason this one isn't being used is because the churches aren't using it. It's not the military. They're waiting on you, church. Right? So churches and the War Department have a sanctioned agreement. So stop wringing your hands and call it the armed forces of the United States to quash the rebellion. We're in a rebellion. We've already been invaded. They're called esquires, right? An esquire is an agent of the crown. The crown being the United States of America, which was a dominion of King George III that he gave to his successors, right, through the Treaty of Peace of 1783. Where in there he claims, United States of America. Not with the capitalized, just United States of America, just like it shows on a passport. Well, there's this other thing also called the United States of America that was created under the Articles of Confederation, which says in this very first article that the style of the Confederation shall be the United States of America. And if you look at money, that's where that is what's on that. All right, so to make a long story short, we've been shanghaied and put into this inferior jurisdiction called the United States of America. Free association is what they would claim. Right, and we did it as simple as filling forms out wrong, putting the wrong style of address or whatever, right? Because they don't tell you what to put on the form. They just say, put your residence address on the form. And you immediately put the thing that you've been trained to believe is your residence address on the form, and you put yourself in the wrong jurisdiction. It wasn't hard to do. It's a trick, scheme, right? Smoke and mirrors, but that's how it's done. If you want to know how the devil does things, well, the devil's in the details. So there's the detail. You got your residence address wrong. On and on and on. These are the little things they did, right? Well, that's what the esquires have done. And once they got the courts, so you can't get justice in the courts, right, because they run the show, well, then there's not much you can do as an individual. But the way this was set up, right, that the wartime government didn't want to deal with individuals. It wanted to deal with organizations of individuals. And so the way you get traction in the wartime government is as an organization, and the sanction agreement is what did it. That's why churches have gold fringe flags, and they have all the authority of the military behind them if they would just use it. Right? So the church has actually appointed an agent of active duty veterans, dependents, and survivors. And, many other things, but this is wartime duty stuff we're talking, right? And so the way it was created in these couple of things we're going to look at is that, they intentionally put the power down in the parish, right? In the hands of the laity, in the parish, congregation, whatever you call your group gatherings, right? If you got a gold fringe flag and you didn't, just go buy it at Walmart, well, then you're styling and profiling. And by the way, you wouldn't buy a gold fringe flag. They wouldn't allow it to be sold, right? It's the symbol of our nation. It is the flag of the United States. And if you've ever heard General Milley speak, he says that the military has a duty to defend the United States. Wherever that flag is where the Army has a duty to, the military, United States military, right, has a duty to defend. So, they're the ones that have to call out. And so, hopefully if you see this video, right, and you can think of some way to get it to somebody in a church after you've done a little bit of your own research, and then get them to come look at this video, right, have them call me. Right, Staff Sergeant Robert Allen Rutluski, United States Army veteran. Yeah, I've been a veteran for many, many years, but I'm still a staff sergeant because, as with all veterans, they've never given us any document to say we've been they have a particular phrase they use, released from the custody and control of your unit or your military branch. Right? We don't have that. So if you don't have it, you're still in. You're in the, we're in the militia. So anyways, but I go by Rob Ryder. It's my avatar. My email address is courtofrecord@aol.com, or they can call me at 616-712-6179. You see, because not all of them have to agree, and not anybody has to agree other than one person, right? One pastor somewhere that understands the power he has because he has the flag. And then as a veteran, as I was telling Anwar, stop for just a second. So if you go to YouTube and go into Rob Ryder, ROBBBRYDER, right, and go check out my videos, many, 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 many videos. But my latest one was this one, Newport News is an alien enemy belligerent. And in this video, I take a gentleman's, Anwar's, veteran's case he was involved in, that they charged him with kidnapping his own child, for God's sakes. Right? And I show all the errors and omissions and all the different forms and how the smoke and mirrors is being orchestrated. So all the proof is there that the courts are corrupt and they can't be used, right? And so the people in those courts are impersonating public officers of the United States or of the several states. And they haven't taken a proper oath of office to satisfy the 6th article of the Constitution. Well, then it's time to call in the military. And I've tried and tried and tried, but, after reading what I just read about this, the government in the wartime doesn't want to deal with individuals, it wants to deal with organizations. Okay, well, you got to find an organization that's in the military government, because truly that's what we're under. None of these other people we're dealing with have an oath of office. They're just pretending to be the civil government. But there isn't one. Right? In truth, Abraham Lincoln put the United States into martial law in 1861 or 1863, depends on which way you want to look at it. But it was the United States. He put the whole United States into martial law, and it's never been rescinded. So the one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, is under martial law, which is what the gold fringe flag symbolizes, right? The church is part of the martial law government, or at least it's acting as an agent for the martial law government, right? Because that's what the military would do. If it was tasked with forming a government, it's not going to have its people do it. It's going to contract that shit out. That's what we have federal contractors for. Right? Because they contract it all out. And they're supposed to do so many, whatever the civic duties would be for a government to provide. Well, they got it under martial law. They still had to be provided. The difference would be martial law government's going to do it all by contract. So really, anybody we're dealing with that's acting like it's a court or the government, the best they are is a frickin' federal contractor, and they're in violation of their contract with the military. They just have buffaloed us to go into the wrong place to argue these things, right? So, hey, if you came from the church and now you're watching this video, and you haven't ever seen any videos, just go watch this one here, and I'm going to go through a bunch of paperwork and show you all things wrong. You can go to this one here is your state governor an alien, unprivileged enemy belligerent? And I'll show you that they are, and I'll show you all the evidence that you would need to say, well, that looks like probable cause. We should probably have it investigated. So, persecuted oath keepers. We got all these people trying to do the right thing being persecuted. And the church is the one that has the authority to do something about it because they have a gold fringe flag. So that's what we're going to. And then, so I didn't forget, right? So in these pamphlets I'm going to read from 1918, 1920, so forth, there's like the National Catholic War Council. That's the handbook I'm going to read from. But it says that there's the Wartime Commission of Federal Council of Churches and the General Wartime Commission of the Federal Churches of Christ in America and the Jewish Welfare Board of the United States Army and Navy. All these entities were given the exact same powers, right? It's just I happen to find these books from the Catholic perspective that I'm going to read from. But if you wanted to get it from the Protestant perspective, I had just found this today. Where is that here, right? That the Presbyterian Historical Society, they have a guide to the Federal Council of Churches of Christ in America records, right? So you're just looking for the wartime records of this council between 1918 and, and on. So, okay, that's enough of the introduction. So give me just a second to load a few things up. Before I move on, I wanted to say, if you look at this, right, that what was then the Federal Council of Churches is now called the National Council of Churches, right? And the National Council of Churches, through the United Methodist Building, which was actually built, at this time, 1918. I'd already shown all this in the videos before, right? But that the United Methodist Building sits right next to the Supreme Court. Right? It's the only non-government building in that area, right, is this United Methodist Building. Well, right around the corner is the Reserve Officers Association, right? Well, those would be military officers. So, you can call out the military by just walking around the corner. I wanted to point that out. Okay, hang on again. Okay, so, if you have a problem with things Catholic, I don't want to give you a seizure, so you may not want to watch anymore. You can go look at the stuff to do with the Protestant churches and try to figure out what to do with it, right? But I'm going to go with the handbooks that I found. So these are online, the Handbook of the National Catholic War Council, which is the entity created, right, during the war to be the civil persona of the Catholic Church in the United States. Well, so they put out a handbook, and there's also this book that was written called American Catholics in the War, right, which is really good to read. I would suggest downloading this book if you've not read it. And, got a lot of good stuff in it. But mainly out of this one right here, this handbook. So I'm going to be reading a few pages out of it, and that was the meaning of the video, was just to point this out and say, hey, can somebody help me find somebody who understands from the church perspective what I'm talking about, and let's put them to use. So hang on. Okay, so, and as, because most of the stuff I'm reading is all historical, right, from World War I time period, right? But what could they do for us today? Well, they could do this sworn statement for us today. This is the thing, right, that if you read what this sworn statement can be used for, it's routine uses, right? Information provided may be further disclosed to federal, state, local, foreign government, law enforcement agencies, prosecutors, courts, child protective services, victims, witnesses, the Department of Veterans Affairs and the Office of Personnel Management, and all that stuff, right, is what this can be used for. So I've advocated in many, many videos that this is the form that we should be using because we're in a military government. But what I haven't been able to do, right, because if you're involved in a court case, they don't let you put in any evidence other than hearsay evidence, right? But that's what they're putting in, and because they're attorneys, they have privilege, so their hearsay evidence is seen higher than your hearsay evidence is going to be, right? The judge is going to decide with the attorney, well, because he has privilege. Well, this is how you overcome hearsay evidence: is you put in, what's called full proof evidence, self-authenticating evidence, evidence under Federal Rules of Evidence Rules 901, 902, right? Self-authenticating evidence. If you do this right, this doesn't need anything else to prove that it's what it is, which is your sworn statement. It's not your affidavit, it's your sworn statement. But a sworn statement has an affidavit in it. And that's the part we got to get the guy with the gold fringe flag to do for us. Right? This affidavit part. After you make your statement, you need to do an affidavit. And over here is the person making the statement. Well, that would be you and the person administering the oath. And, where he got his authority to do so. And because this is going into a military jurisdiction, you can't use a notary public. Right? It had to be somebody that's in the military chain of command. And by gosh, if there's a gold fringe flag, that command exists. And so you see this gold fringe flag in courts and in township halls, county commissioners' offices, all sorts of places. But they don't want to use the authority. Right? Well, it doesn't mean the church can't. The church has got the same flag. They can use the authority. And if they would just do this part right here, provide some witnesses, right? So this is the parish staff, basically. Then, because what we're asking them to do is no different than doing a marriage license. That's a civil duty that the church has been given as part of having the marriages solemnized for the civilian government. Right? We're oath, vow, or promise. And that's all we're doing, right? This is our oath that what we said here is a true statement. So that's what they could do for us, right? That's just one of the things that that the church has the authority to do because it has the gold fringe flag. And Anwar needs somebody to, that's the gentleman that's in this. Why is this so slow today? Oh, here we go. Right? Newport News, right? He needs somebody to either advocate for him or at least to witness his sworn statement. So there you go, Anwar. Go show this to you said you had, you knew a preacher or two. Let's see what they'll do for us. Okay, hang on again. Okay, so let's begin the reading. Now, I don't plan on reading this whole book, of course, but I am going to read sections of it, so it's mainly just me reading out of the book. Right? If you don't want to listen to me read it, go read it yourself. But here we go. This handbook is written primarily for the purpose of describing in brief outline the causes which brought the National Catholic War Council into being and the problems which face the Catholic Church of the United States during the present war. And that war is still going on today, right? Nothing's changed. To make the world safe for democracy, to establish peace in the world upon tested foundations of political liberty, to champion the rights of mankind, such in the words of President Wilson, is the task to which the American people have dedicated their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. To accomplish this, the American Republic has had to sacrifice a principle upon which policies have almost always been based, that of splendid isolation. The President has told us that the chief obstacle at the beginning of the war was to overcome this traditional aloofness in world affairs. The world is no longer, he has said, divided into little circles of interest. The world no longer consists of neighborhoods. The world is linked in a common life and interest such as humanity has never saw before. What disturbs the life of the whole world is the concern of the whole world, and it is our duty to lend the full force of this nation, moral and physical, to the League of Nations, which shall see to it that nobody disturbs the peace of the world without submitting his case first to the opinion of mankind. I want to point out, right, he didn't put League of Nations like the name of something, right? This is not the title of an organization. This is, like a duty of a group of nations. Anyways, right, it's the difference between a definition of something and the title of something, which once, you give something a title, it doesn't have to have anything to do with what the definition is. It's just words put together to use as a title. Okay, in the world today, the strongest response to this new internationalism must come from the Church of the Ages. The Catholic Church cannot remain an isolated factor in the nation. The Catholic Church possesses spiritual and moral resources, which are at the command of the nation in every great crisis. Did you hear what that said? At the command of the nation in every great crisis. The message of the nation to forget local boundaries and provincialism is a message likewise to the Catholic Church. Parochial, diocese, provincial limits must be forgotten in the face of the greater task which burden our collective religious resources. Today, as never before, the Catholic Church in the United States, it's interesting to use Catholic Church of the United States, Catholic Church in the United States, has an opportunity for doing a nationwide work. No one honestly doubts Catholic loyalty to the principles of American nation and for the hierarchy to the clergy. And from the clergy to the people, the government expects an impulse towards perfect and efficient cooperation with its agencies in carrying out the war to success. Again, did you hear what they said? And from the hierarchy to the clergy, and from the clergy to the people, the government expects an impulse towards a perfect and efficient cooperation with all of its agencies in carrying out the war to success. That war is still going, right? And the people are the government of the church through the parish council. So I'm thinking right now that you're not going to find a council with the names that we're going to see, but it's the parish council, right? Ex officio, they still have those duties. It's just, they need to be dust off the book and find out how we use them. Okay, this handbook has been designed to assist in this cooperation. Its chapters have been so divided that the reader may easily find that particular sections which refers to their service and war work. And so, again, I can't read this whole thing, but if you were to read the whole thing, you would see that the hierarchy created a model, and this is how they want, this is the way to use it. And whether it's being used or not today, the model's still there. So you got the National War Council. Yeah, and you got the Catholic Army and Navy Chaplain Bureau, right? This is what really ties the churches, right? Because the Protestant churches have the same thing, to the military is through the Chaplain Bureau. Right? But they were given all these other duties too. That's what we're going to read about a little bit. But what they did intentionally is they put all the power to do it down in the local parish. And so the local parish can have an influence on the nation because it has a gold fringe flag, which is the one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It's that United States. Okay, hang on again. Okay, and to put it in context a little bit, what all this meant then was the establishment of the National Catholic War Council. Purpose and scope of its activities, members of the National Catholic War Council committees. Right? The purpose of the National Catholic War Council. When the declaration of war was made by the United States against the German Empire, every part of the organization of the church immediately became solicitous to do its share in assisting the government. Activities of all kinds were begun by Catholic men and women in various parts of the country, and individuals as well as corporate cooperation with such movements as the Belgian Relief, the Red Cross, Liberty Loan, and others became the watchword. Shortly after the declaration of war, the loyalty of the Catholic hierarchy of the clergy and the people were pledged anew to the country and to its government. to its government and to its supreme executive in a letter to President Wilson, drawing up by the archbishops of the United States, or drawn up by the archbishops of the United States, at their annual meeting in April 1917 at the Catholic University of America. That's interesting. That's April 1917. May 1917 was the first apparition in Fatima. Right? If you've never heard about the miracle of Fatima, you should go Fatima, I think it is. Fatima. Fatima. It's easy enough to find. And, that's a whole nother side of this, but I'm just saying, any Catholic would know, well, should know that this is 1 month before the first apparition at Fatima happened. All right, the following is a complete text of this important document, which was presented to the president by Cardinal Gibbons. Right, this is part of establishing the pledge that the church did to the nation. Right, and so not just the Catholic Church did this. I mean, so the Protestant churches, I'm sure, in their documentation has got the same type of stuff. So standing firmly upon a solid Catholic tradition and history, from the very foundation of this nation, we reaffirm in this hour of stress and trial our most sacred and sincere loyalty and patriotism to our country, our government, and our flag. That would be the one with the gold fringe on it. Moved to the very depths of our hearts by the stirring appeal of the President of the United States and by the action of our National Congress, we accept wholeheartedly and unreservedly the decree of that legislative authority proclaiming this country to be in a state of war. We have prayed that we might be spared the dire necessity of entering the conflict. But now that war has been declared, we bow in obedience to the summons to bear our part in it with fidelity, with courage, and with the spirit of sacrifice, which as loyal citizens we are bound to manifest for the defense of the most sacred rights and welfare of the whole nation. Accordingly, gladly, and gratitude that we have always felt for the protection of our spiritual liberty and freedom of our Catholic institutions under the flag, we pledge our devotion and our strength to the maintenance of our country's glorious leadership and those possessions and principles which have been America's proudest boast. Inspired neither by hate nor fear, but with holy sentiments of the truest patriotic fervor and zeal, we stand ready, we and all the flock committed to our keeping, to cooperate in every way possible with our president and our national government, to the end that the great and holy cause of liberty may triumph, and that our beloved country may emerge from this hour of test stronger and nobler than ever. Yes, we're going to enter the 1,000-year reign of Christ. Our people now, as ever, will rise as one man to serve the nation. Our priests and our consecrated women will once again, as in every former trial of our country, win by their bravery, their heroism, and their service new admiration and approval. We are all true Americans, ready as our age, ability, and our condition permit to do whatever is in us to do for the preservation, the progress, and the triumph of our beloved country. May God direct and guide the President and our government that out of this trying crisis in our national life may at length come a closer union among the citizens of America, and that an enduring and blessed peace may crown the sacrifices which war inevitably entails. So, if you didn't get it, the Catholic Church pledged itself to the United States. Thank you very much. Catholics throughout the United States naturally rejoice at the large number of co-religionists in the Army and Navy. It's clearly evident that the percentage of Catholics in the service was proportionately higher than the number of Catholics in the country. It's always a good sign. This happy result was under index of the patriotism of the Catholic body. And when the government asked that organized lay agencies should take their share in caring for soldiers and sailors, the Catholic body was eager to assist the well-being of all men in service. Again, this is the part where the parish comes in. And when the government asked the organized lay agencies should take their share in caring for soldiers and sailors, the Catholic body was eager to assist in the well-being of all men in the service. Now, you need to understand that from the minute you go and you register for the draft, right, select the service system, right, you are in the military. You may not have been called up, you may not be getting paid, but you went, you registered, you're in, right? So your well-being is under the protection of the churches. But with the vast number of Catholic societies willing and anxious to offer their services and with untold resources of the Catholic Church throughout the country, the situation presented many delicate and difficult problems. That a national Catholic organization of some kind was necessary after the entrance of the United States into the war on April 6, 1917, soon became apparent, and in August, under the direction of the cardinals and blah, 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 poof, right? They created this entity. The convention pledged the united power and combined resources of the entire Catholic body and of all Catholic organizations to assist the government in every need and problem arising from the war. Well, we have a problem, church. The people who are supposed to be the judges aren't judging justly. They got a gold fringe flag too. They're under the jurisdiction of the military, but they're not judging justly. We need you to say something about it for us. Right? And the ones that can do it, apparently, is the lay boards, right, in the various dioceses, right? Secondly, that the lay local board should be established in the various dioceses. They placed on record their hearty approbation and admirable regulation made by our War and Navy departments for the safeguarding of our camps, cantonments, naval and military establishments from the moral dangers incidental to camp life. There you are. In November, the Archbishops of the United States constituted themselves a National Catholic War Council and appointed their administrative committee of 4 bishops. Right? So, and then it gets into a lot of blah, blah, blah about how it was put together. We're going to kind of pass through here, but there may have been 1 or 2 lines I wanted to say. Really want to get down to, well, okay, how do you use this thing, right? But nevertheless, it's good to know. The Chaplains Aid Association is under the direction of the Committee of Special War Activities and the National Catholic War Council, of the National Catholic War Council, Washington, D.C., right? There's this thing called the Special War Activities branch we're trying to get into. That's the thing that links the church through the parish to the military with the tanks. Right, and can call them in to their defense, right? Because the chairman of the Joint Chiefs says that the United States military has a duty to defend the United States, and that's wherever the flag is. What did I just pop by here? Okay, then we're going to have a National Committee on Historic Records. Oh, this is important, right? Because this is how you make sure everybody can remember what the agreement was, right? Put it on the record. The National Committee on, or the Committee on National Catholic War Records has been directed by the Administrative Committee of Bishops to bend every effort to secure immediately and to preserve an accurate and complete record of all Catholic American activity in the present war. That war is still going on. This part of the National Catholic War Council cannot be too strongly emphasized. Unless we make provision for the history of Catholic patriotism and an effort in this war, we shall be guilty of neglect which can never be remedied and of a mistake which can never be retrieved, right? Because everything's about setting the precedence. What did you do once the first time? Right, and then that's the precedence. You need to set the precedence and get it on record. If we fail to set the precedence, authentic records of our civic and religious activities, we fail to record all noble impulses that enrich the hearts of American Catholics, we rob the Church of the future of inspiration, example, and interpretation, right? The precedents. What was meant to be done. Yes. Okay, so then the Committee of Historical Records of the National Catholic War Council has divided this work into two main parts. First, gathering the census of the Catholic men and women in the service of the United States. Well, isn't that good to have, right? They're supposed to take a census. So if your name's in the census about you're in the service of the United States, well, that puts you in a protected person status, if you get what I'm talking about. Talked about it in my last video, right? This is international law stuff. Second, the creation of National Catholic Archives, where all materials relating to the aspect of the national or to the Catholic activities in the war will be preserved and kept for future historians. The committee desires, therefore, to secure at once for this census of Catholic men and women in the service the name, age, home address, branch of service, name and address of the nearest relative or friend. Right, of every man, every Catholic man in the Army, Navy, Marines in the United States. Of those examined and passed, even though they're not yet called to service, right? So that's everybody who goes and registers. Well, no, actually you haven't been examined and passed yet. You've only registered. I talked about this as one of the problems with the selective service. They're not doing it all the way to the end, right? You're supposed to get registered, get examined, and then pass, and then, then you're on the list. So there you go, right? That's what they're supposed to be doing. And then you got the Knights of Columbus got involved. There's a chance that it's the Knights of Columbus we're supposed to go to because they are involved. They were picked as an agent to work for the parish or for the National War Council. But that was supposed to be in the camps and everything. The parishes had their own jurisdiction. All right, the traditions of our history have been overthrown, institutions have been modified, the purpose of peaceful life, which have given variety and manifold culture to our civilization, have been suspended on account of the war, right? The Constitution has been suspended. Time of war, we're under martial law, the war's still going, right? So the military is still the government. The president is the commander-in-chief. And all of the troopies in the field are, include these agencies that were created by agreements with the War Council, or with the Department of War. In the nature of cases, duplication, delay, oversight, and waste are forbidden. Men and women who have insight, imagination, and courage must undertake the course of complicated thinking in order to guide the workers into the path to prevent confusion and obviate all neutralization. Yeah, well, I can take care of that one step, right? Just frickin' put your name at the bottom of my sworn statement, right? I need somebody to do this right here. Who's got a gold fringe flag? And we can, and we can take care of the rest. This is what veterans can do. Okay. Well, hang on a second. Okay. The National Catholic War Council is the hierarchy, and the Committee of Special War Activities serves the bishops in whatever way they may be disposed to ask, right? So they're telling you what you need to do, right? Got to get the bishop to contact the Committee of Special War Activities. Well, where's that at? Well, that's the bishop to find out. Here, bishop, it says it right here. We have an agreement with the frickin' military. Right? We can't be breaking our agreement, so you need to go figure this out. Why don't you contact one of your chaplains? Right? The Catholic Church has a bishop for the armed forces. Now, I've tried all the different avenues with these entities before, and left a bad taste in my mouth, and so somebody else is going to have to figure out how to get them to agree that gold fringe flag means that you have some jurisdiction, right? But Formation of diocesan war councils. Well, ain't that something, right? Every diocese got a war council. The National Catholic War Council touches every diocese and every national Catholic activity, and the hope that through Diocesan War Council, every Catholic man and woman will be interested in and informed about the work in cooperation. It is the desire of the National Catholic War Council that not only in every diocese, but every parish in the country, the Catholic War Council Committee be established. Right? That's what they wanted done. This is like, the general telling his commanders in the field what he wants done. And so I'm sure that it's been done. The paperwork is there. The model has been created. It may not have been used for a long time, but the model has already been created. The bishop of each diocese will know what best answer the needs and the resources of his own diocese. So if you take him a problem, he'll know how to get the answer for it. And the problem is that esquires have taken over the courts. And so, the Catholic Church has its own tribunals. It's like, well, then maybe that's the answer, Bishop. Activate the tribunal. Right, jeepers, creepers. You got canon law. You got, all sorts of stuff on how the tribunals are set up and how they're supposed to be used. And all they ever get used for is for annulments. And that ain't but one page, or maybe a couple pages, in canon law. So what about the rest of it? I just bring that up, right? I don't care how you get it done. Just go get it done. The head of the Diocesan War Council is, of course, the bishop of the diocese. Well, there you go. A general committee might be constituted to represent men and women appointed to each of the by each pastor, subject to approval. Okay, so now we got these different levels at the diocesan level, which is all good. But there is not a Catholic parish in the United States from which young men have not gone to the service of the country, placing life itself in jeopardy for the defense of the flag. There is not a Catholic parish in the United States whose spirit has not been quickened, and whose affections have not bravely followed the soldiers and sailors wherever duty has called them. Organizations, leaders, localities have demanded some kind of uniformity of direction, which would give us common terms by which to state our duties, to measure our activities, and to meet our responsibilities with promptness and accuracy. I would expect nothing else. I'm sure the Catholic Church has got the perfect model. In certain localities, a tendency has developed to confine war activities to the services of soldiers and sailors who have gone from the city or diocese without rising to the concept of our national problems as a whole. Right? It has more to do with the sailors leaving than it has to do with that we're at war, and the wars, can happen here. And it has. We've been invaded by esquires. This development has not brought the full inspiration of national purpose and the unity of national idea into play. The national organization can undertake tasks only in a national way, and anything else involves partial results, duplication of appeal, and failure of a link to resources into effective system. So if you do it once right someplace, it will affect the whole nation. Isn't that a wonderful thing? We only got to have one person with a gold fringe flag willing to sign his name to it. Praise Jesus. I know they're out there, right? I may not have been able to get the county to do it or the townships to do it or the courts to do it, but I'm sure I can get someone from the church to do it. They just need to know they have the authority. That's what I'm here for. I'm going to prove to you have the authority. It's in the book. You're just going to follow the book. The plan of organization presented in this handbook for Diocesan War Council work is based on the organization of the Church of the United States. I didn't say Catholic Church of the United States. It just said Church of the United States. What does that mean? Who's that? Church of the United States. Right? That's what's been organized, is the Church of the United States. Because it cooperates with all the other churches through the common link through the military. So if here's an example. Then if soldiers from 5 states of 15 dioceses are formed into a single cantonment, The problems created concern the entire church of the country and not simply the diocese in question. Well, that's what causes the issue. What happens one place affects it all. That agency is the National War Council, and its representative in every diocese is the Diocesan War Council. Okay, so that's who represents the big dog, is the bishop. Cooperative committees, the Diocesan Council. I'm not so much interested in Diocesan for today. That's a broader picture, but I do want to see what they said about the. Well, here we go. Service records. So the Diocesan Committee on Historical Records. So they're going to keep the records. The purpose of the committee shall be to act as a central board in directing the work of collecting war history material throughout the diocese. It should prepare programs and activity for the use of parochial committee on historical records. It should direct by correspondence and by personal visit the kind of material to the collected and suggested plans for it being sent to the National Catholic Archives in Washington. All historical material concerning Catholic activity in the diocese should be collected, preserved, filed, and properly indexed. One copy to be placed in the Diocesan Archives, the other to be sent to the National Committee of Historical Records on 14th Street in D.C. I don't know if this is still there because they've changed the names. But we're going to find out where they are. So anyways, so I can stop right here. This, they're not using the name National Catholic War Council anymore. I mean, that's, it was back in the day. But on this brief history of the USCCB, it says that in 1917, the bishops of the United States formed the National Catholic War Council to enable U.S. Catholics to contribute funds and commit personnel to provide spiritual care and recreation for service members of World War I. 1919, then Pope Benedict XV urged for the hierarchy to join him in working for peace, social justice. Right, so they changed the name. And anyways, eventually ended up going back to the SCCB in July 1st, 2021. So I'm saying, well, the USCCB is today what the National Catholic War Council was back then. And, the person that can prove it is the bishop, because the bishop's still the bishop, right? That part didn't change. What's happened at the diocese stayed the same. They put it all in the hands of the bishop. The one main duty, however, of the Diocesan Committee on Historical Wisdom is a complete census of the men who have entered the service. So anybody who's been registered, right, there should be a census done, and you put into the record, that you existed in the diocese. Because what the Esquires have done is they've made it look like we're in this other jurisdiction. Well, this would put you back in the diocese jurisdiction, which is under the gold fringe flag of the United States. Or the parish's jurisdiction, right? Cards or blanks should be sent, broadcast to the families of the diocese, asking for the name of and home address of each soldier, his branch of service, and name of his nearest relative. Right? So what branch of service you in? You're in the unorganized militia, right? Whatever it is, that's just what you're in. You're in the reserves. That's your branch. Whatever needs to be changed to make it work for today, I'm fine with, but I'm saying that once you signed up for selective service, you're in the military. A file should be kept on all promotions, honors, decorations given to the men in service from the diocese. A casualty list from the diocese should also be kept. Copies of all these lists should be filed with the chancellor of the diocese and the National Committee at Washington. Right? It's a freaking record of the church. The entire Church of the United States must meet these demands, and every parish in the country should be united into the diocesan chapter for the work to be successful. All right? Again, it's the Church in the United States. This is a war of Christian morality against the pagan materialism, and there is a great crisis to come in the moral world after the war is over than in the political or economic world. There you are, right? We know they don't do anything moral because none of these people take a proper oath of office, right? Everything that they operate under bad faith, right? They pretend to do something and they didn't do it. They tell you things up to the comma, but they don't tell you the rest, right? It's all acts of bad faith. The world is fighting its way back to Christianity and to Christian moral principle, and unless a strong public opinion in recognition of the sacrifice of the Catholic Church of the United States has been created, discrimination, lack of confidence, and probably open opposition will later result. Right? But hey, if it's in there that they're doing it for this reason, well, that should make everybody happy. The church will say, bring your problem to us. It is needless to emphasize that the perfection of the Catholic organization and parochial unit is the heart of the Catholic endeavor, right? And that's the parish. The Catholic Church ran England, for 1,000 years before Henry VIII took over. The Catholic Church showed up in the 5th century and organized England in the way that you would call common law of England. And part of that was, that the church was part of the state. And, what they call the vicar now, right, would have been the parish priest at the time. He was in charge of, for the king of shit that happened in the parish. So he's an agent of the king. And it's no different today. Right now, the parish priest is an agent of the sovereign, right? Who's the sovereign? Well, it's the military. They're the government. It's the United States. They're in charge of working for the United States. I should say that the United States is still the sovereign, right? But you need to be under the flag to be in the United States because esquires have taken you to the United States of America, which is a parallel jurisdiction where there is no constitutional protection. The parish itself is a body made in a community of prayer for the guidance of the president, members of the cabinet. In other words, you can be writing to them. The main important thing to be said is that, in this respect, is that every parish must realize that the work they must do in the present war will undoubtedly be continued for many years. The parish must awake to the fact that it has a responsibility not only within its own boundary lines, but to the nation at large and to the church at large. Big responsibility given to the parish. In each parish of the diocese, wherever practical, and the bishop so directs, a parochial war council should be established with the pastor as its head. Well, there you go. When thus organized, the parochial war unit of the diocese have it in their power, therefore, to form a strong central organization in which no single aspect of the war will be denied its legitimate place. Okay, well, that would have something to do with the people who also have gold fringe flags that are, not doing the right thing. They got to be called out. These units should endeavor to seek out all existing forces in the parish and to bring them into intelligent and sympathetic relationships so that all waste and friction and inefficiency shall be avoided. Hey, let's all work together, right? There's many units within the diocese. All the Christian churches, right, that are in a diocese should be working together. You're just in the territorial boundary of a diocese. That's what we're talking about, right? There is a way to work together. These units should be so thoroughly one in spirit and in method that the Diocesan War Council may be prepared to give adequate cooperation in new problems of war service and reconstruction, which may have to be faced when the war is over. Well, that's what we're dealing with. Right? We got reconstruction issues that need to be dealt with. Okay, and so all of that then, we're going to see here is these are the government and supplemental agencies in war work. Right, this is the meat and potatoes now. Okay, now that we have this thing, well, what is it for? Right, well, no individual in this great land of ours can stand without a circle of war workers. From the moment that a state of war was declared between this country in Germany, the watchword turned from preparedness to cooperation. Individual cooperation has been accepted by the government wherever it has been found valuable, but it is the cooperation of organized bodies in this land, right? That's a land word. That's a jurisdiction, which is the best suited for the work of the government has outlined as its support, right? Where's the land? Well, it's wherever you plant the flag, right? It's not fiction. It's the de jure jurisdiction. Standing fully erect on God-given platform of his divine faith, the Catholic not only may, but should cooperate in these great civic and patriotic measures, which are common to all of us as citizens. So in other words, if you're a Catholic attorney, you really need to search your soul and say, why am I participating in this bar card system, right? Which makes you give up your First Amendment rights so you can have a freaking bar card. So you're supposed to be able to go and practice in these courts. And yet when you get to the court, the judge doesn't have a proper oath of office. Well, that's not the right judge then. How come you're not saying something? All right, we need to participate and say that shit is wrong. All right, with this perfect system of jurisdiction, it is one of the most vital factors in national life where in time of war or in time of peace, the Catholic Church stands as the most stable moral force within the nation. And we're talking about having each of these parishes can have all this power within their parish. Right, the different Protestant denominations have organized for war purposes under the title the General Wartime Commissions of the Federal Churches of Christ in America. The Jews Orthodox Reforms under the Jewish Welfare Board of the United States Army and Navy. The National Organization of War Council of the Catholic Church is the National Catholic War Council. All these are asked to cooperate with government agencies on war work. Right? This is how we get it done. That's why we got to go through them. That's where the cooperation is. The problem of the government are in many cases common to all, and only a common understanding can contribute to the national well-being. It is our duty to manifest a spirit of cooperation in national and local problems. And it is our duty also to cooperate with all the agencies of national war work that the government has established, right? Because apparently the government established these agencies, under wartime conditions. Because we're under martial law, right? So I think that's where all these agencies come from. They're not under the constitutional government, they're under the wartime government. It would be impossible to give a complete description of the government agencies, but a description of the principal ones will be sufficient to enable each distinct unit of National Catholic War Council to find the best scope of its activities. The Diocesan War Councils and of the parochial units, which will find these agencies at all times most willing to give direction and to assist in the work and speedy, accurate cooperation with their plans. Did you hear what that said? All right, let me just read the whole thing from the beginning. So the following pages, the chief governmental and social agencies are outlined, and the chairman of the different committees of the diocesan war councils and of the parochial units will find these agencies at all times most willing to give direction and to assist in the work of speedy and accurate cooperation with their plans. You need to ask them. This is so wonderful, church. It's like, come on, somebody with a gold fringe flag at a parish. Let's go. Right, the following statements have been made in each case prepared by the officials of the agency in question. And the National Catholic War Council desires to place here on historical record its appreciation of the courtesy with which their requests for these statements have been met. They asked for it, and the agency gave them an answer. Right? So this is what the agency is going to say that they're here for. Right? The principal agencies of cooperation. Government agencies. Well, the first one's the Department of Treasury. Bureau of War Risk Insurance. What the United States government does for its fighting men and families. Every enlisted man. Uh, First of all, the United States government provides three forms of financial protection for its fighting forces and their families. You got allotments and allowances. I guess I don't have time to read all these, right? Compensation for death or disability. Well, that's, that would be like Department of Veterans Affairs, right? And disability compensation is payable to the disabled person himself, right? And government insurance, right? A, B, and C. Got three different kinds of things. Well, each of these is, let's see, in case of death of a person having so applied for the $10,000 insurance, right? So now I think it's like $50,000, right? The government will pay so long as there are persons living who are entitled to receive the same monthly installments of $57.50 for each for 20 years, which makes the first, which taking interest in account, aggregate of $13.80. Right? Well, if that is true, and as I've said, that nobody is ever let out of the military, so every person who ever entered the military will die in the military, and so therefore the insurance that they should have gotten from the military should be paid. In this case, it was a $10,000, payable over so many years, $13.80. Well, that's been, or $13,800. That's been sitting in an account for years and years and years, right? It's, God knows how many hundreds of thousands of dollars that is today. If it was, if it was never taken out, it's not that it isn't there. It's just never been taken, right? The insurance cannot be made payable to anyone except those included in the permitted class, namely spouse, child, grandchildren, parent, brother, sister, as defined in the War Risk Insurance Act. The point is that this is the things that the parish or the church was put in charge of, right? Being the agent with the Department of Treasury about these particular aids that were given to service members. This is the greatest measure of protection ever offered to its fighting forces by any nation in the history of the world. It is not charity. It is essence of justice and the gallant men who have gone to the colors and to their loved ones at home. In addition to administering the War Risk Insurance Act, the Bureau of War Risk Insurance is authorized to act for men in active military service, which I say we all are. Still alive, you're still under active military service, you're just a reservist, under the provisions of the Soldiers and Sailors Civil Relief Act, approved on March 8, 1918, in the matter of the lapsing and forfeiture of certain specified life insurance contracts, either in life insurance companies or fraternal organizations, orders or organizations. So in other words, right, under the Soldiers and Sailors Civil Relief Act, there's all sorts of things that were done, right? And the church has got something to do with it. But if nothing else, it has something to do with the insurance that would be paid through it. And so there's many, many veterans, their dependents, their survivors, that need what's been withheld, and it's you get it through the church, apparently, not by going to a veteran service officer, which is the way that they have, that they direct you to go when you want to get something to the VA. You go to the veteran service officer. Well, according to this, you go to your parish, right? That they're your agent when it comes to matters like this. The benefits of the Veteran Soldiers and Sailors Civil Relief Act are available only upon application, right? The Act applies only to persons in service from March 8th, 1918, the date of approval of the Act, and to persons entering active service after that date from such date of entry. Well, there you go. So, the only way you can get this is by application, and you're supposed to, they make it sound like because this particular agency is cooperating with the parish that you should be going to the parish to get done whatever needs to be done. or your congregation. Again, if you're not a Catholic, I'm not saying you have to go to a Catholic church, the Baptist church, whatever it is, they're supposed to have this power. You got a gold fringe flag and, somewhere in the church, well, then that church has got the authority. I know they're not using it. That's what we need to do, is convince them that they can. The insurance under the Soldiers and Sailors Civil Relief Act does not apply to government insurance issued by the Bureau of Risk, right? So this is a separate one from the Bureau of War Risk Insurance. That's a wonderful thing, right? I mean, this is one then that everybody has. If you went in, right, then, and whatever "in" means, I mean, that could be just because you went and registered, right, that you have this insurance policy. Let's see what else we got. Well, the Department of War and Navy. President Wilson has stated he does not believe it an exaggeration to say that no Army or Navy ever before assembled have had more conscientious or painstakingly thought to give the protection and stimulation of their mental, moral, and physical manhood than the American armies at present time, and that in this work the Commission on Training Camp Activities are to be given the credit for their wonderful success attained so far. The twin commissions of the training camp activities, one for the Army Department of the War Department and one for the Navy Department, which were appointed by Secretary Baker and Secretary Daniels early in the war, are charged with the responsibility of cultivating and conserving the manhood and manpower of Americans fighting forces. Right? This is where you go. You want to protect your Second Amendment rights? Well, go to the church. We have a commission to work through these commissions to make sure that stuff doesn't happen. So, it goes on and on and on. I'm not going to sit here and read these all, but this is what needs to be looked at deeper, obviously. But I'm just showing you, man, we got all these avenues that start at the parish level that are tied directly to agencies that are waiting for us to, are waiting to cooperate with somebody with a gold fringe flag, right? Not with the individual. It's got to be with an organization. So, okay. Well, hey, this video's gone long enough. You get the idea what I was talking about, right? That we have this power, right? The churches do. Christian churches, wartime pledge to God, country, and flag. It's already been done, right? They already have the duty. It hasn't gone away, right? It's a wartime duty, and the war's still going. So attention, Christian churches. The gold fringe flag is a symbol of your authority. It's not a decoration, right? That flag is tied to every other gold fringe flag in the nation. It's the one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, right? But you need to use your authority. And the simplest way to use your authority to start with, until you show me an easier way. If you have an easier way, I'm happy to do it your way, right? But here's one way. I need to do a sworn statement about things that are wrong, and I need somebody to put their John Henry here who can say, prove they have the authority to do so. And if you're a member of a church that was given or is under a binding agreement with the War Department, well, you can do it, right? Because that's the jurisdiction that this form is made for. And again, this is the Army DA Form 2823, right? That it's just a sworn statement form. It's not. You will not be filing an affidavit, which is what they talk about was being filed during the election fiasco. An affidavit is an oath rendered to writing, but it's not evidence because it can't be disputed, right? This is your sworn statement. It can be disputed because you just believe it to be true based on what you know, right? But still, you're willing to swear that this is what you believe, right? Well, this is evidence. It's a sworn statement, right? This is like a self-deposition certified by the proper officer for the jurisdiction that it's going into, which would be anybody with a gold fringe flag, but it's certainly a church because they have a gold fringe flag. And I've tried to convince the county and the township and the state and various agencies and so forth without any luck. So now I'm going to try to convince the church. Alrighty, now then. Have a great day. And church, remember, God's watching, right? It's time to get up. Quit wringing your hands. You want to stop this problem, all you got to do is call in the military, and they will quash the rebellion. It's guaranteed. Okay. God bless. See you now.